This elite athlete almost only did low intensity training for the last 3 months, and he's about to get his VO2 max tested to see if it actually improved in an all-out max effort with just focusing on low heart rate training. So this is Alfred, and I met him and became his coach 7 years ago, and back then he was only 13 years old and told me he wanted to become the best orienteering runner in the world. And last summer at the age of 19 he became a junior world champion with the Norwegian team and took home a bronze medal in the individual middle distance. And this was his last season competing in the junior classes, so next year he will compete against the absolute best orienteering runners in the world. So coming into this winter season of training, we wanted to try something new in his training to start getting him one step closer to the absolute best in the world. We wanted to try to periodicize his training more by starting the winter training with building a really strong aerobic base with almost no faster running. Just a lot of hours in those zone 1 and zone 2 heart rate zones. So the thinking behind this is that just focusing a lot on this in this first part of the training towards next season will allow him to train a lot more in terms of hours and volume without risking injury problems or overtraining. And by doing a lot of hours of low intensity training, it will build that really great aerobic fitness base that will allow him to do a lot of hard intervals and trainings at that competition speed closer to the season and his goal competitions. Part of this philosophy is taken from Nils Ferp's training, who revolutionized the sport of speed skating with his a bit untraditional approach to training that helped him to get several world records and Olympic gold medals and dominate the sport. So he started each base training period with a massive block of low intensity aerobic training, often training more than 30 hours in a single week. And as he got closer to the competitions, he did more high intensity competition intensity interval work than any other speed skater managed to do, which led to these really insane results. And the reason he managed to do this much hard training and recover from it and get better from it and not just get overtrained were the extremely high amounts of low heart rate training he started out his base training block with. So back to Alfred and if his VO2 max actually improved from just low intensity training in the lab testing he did. But before we look at that, let's talk quickly about what VO2 max is and how Alfred actually trained during these last 3 months. VO2 max, or maximal oxygen uptake, is a measure of the maximum amount of oxygen that an individual can utilize during intense exercise. So VO2 max is basically the max capacity of your endurance engine, and although it doesn't tell you everything about how an athlete actually can perform, it's just one piece of the puzzle to have a really high VO2 max, but it says a lot about how well you will be able to perform in a high intensity endurance sport. And the most effective and specific way to boost your VO2 max is to do a lot of high intensity intervals, and plenty of studies have shown that you can boost it quite quickly with an intense period of high intensity intervals over that 90% heart rate. So the training that Alfred did the last 3 months did not specifically target getting a big VO2 max boost. That training will, as mentioned, come later closer to his target competitions. But all of this low intensity training should hopefully make his mitochondria in his muscles work more effectively, which hopefully, besides building a generally strong body that will handle a lot of hard training going forwards, also boosts his VO2 max. So although we knew that getting a big increase in VO2 max wasn't the main focus, both of us of course hopes that it was a bit higher than the last test. But I was actually really curious going into this test. Although I believe in the extremely hard work Alfred puts in, I was a bit worried that the VO2 max could even have lowered due to the lack of high intensity intervals. So before we check the results from Alfred's test, let's see here what his training has looked like during this training period. So here in October he did his last VO2 max test and had a value of 68.8 milliliters per kilograms. And prior to this test he had some injury problems and then an intense period with competition and quite lots of high intensity training and races, but only training 5 to 9 hours the last weeks leading into this last VO2 max test. And then he had one last competition weekend before we started the high volume, low intensity training block, gradually increasing to about 20 hours a week. And it was a mix with running easy long runs, shorter easy runs in the forest, and a lot of alternative training with cycling, elliptical, because if all of this big volume increase would have been through running, the injury risk would have been quite high. So we tried to find a safe way to do it and really tried to keep the intensity down on almost all workouts for his body to be able to handle this new load, adapt to it, and actually get aerobically stronger and stronger from each week of training. The only workout or higher intensity work he did on a regular basis was every other week. He did a threshold workout on the treadmill of 3 times 10 minutes, but also this was that low aerobic threshold, staying under 2 millimoles in lactate and running at a pace that's basically for him is comfortable and he could have kept for a really long time. We can just quickly go through a base week here so you get an understanding for what he did before we check the results from his VO2 max test. Monday a complete rest day, or for him focusing on working on his job. And Tuesday morning 2 hours and 50 minutes of cycling easy. Tuesday evening 1.5 hours of easy orienteering running in the forest. Wednesday morning jog 40 minutes and some strength work. Wednesday evening elliptical for 30 minutes plus 1 hour of strength training. Thursday morning jog for 60 minutes and some more strength and stability work. Friday morning easy run 40 minutes. Friday evening 30 minutes row machine and 30 minutes ski erg. And Saturday morning morning run 40 minutes easy, and Saturday evening 3 hours cycling easy, and Sunday a 3 hour long run. So basically a lot of training and a lot of hours at low intensity. So let's see what his test results were from the VO2 max test. And he did a great test, both improving his lactate threshold speed, going from 16.7 kilometers per hour to 17.4 kilometers per hour as a threshold speed. And without these really hard workouts, he still improved his VO2 max from 68.8 to 72.6, which is really interesting and another good example of that you can get faster from running slow if you just increase your training load and have a good consistency in your training. But mainly he has built a great base to continue the work, and I'm really impressed by the work he continues to put down towards his goals. Thanks Alfred for letting me share your training and test values and for letting me be a part of your journey as an athlete. And thanks to you who's watching. Hope you found this case study interesting. Train smart, have fun, and I will see you in the next video.